Welcome to the session. We're just going to go ahead and kick things off with a quick introduction. I'll go ahead and start with myself. My name is Dominic. I am the co-founder and CEO at Sherlock. We're an all-in-one HR platform for HR consultants and fractional HR leaders looking to manage and scale their business. We provide tools and expert support to help HR consultants and fractional leaders build better businesses. Today, we are joined by Anjanette. I would love to introduce her. She will do a much better job of telling you about herself than I will. So, Anjanette, I'll go ahead and turn this over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I'm Anjanette. I'm so happy to be here. I help founders and solopreneurs build their personal brands on LinkedIn so they can build their businesses. I hope people land clients on LinkedIn. And aside from that, I'm also a 7-figure copywriter and have my agency Stratus, where I do all of those things.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you, Anjanette. I was super excited to partner with Anjanette for our first webinar because there really is nobody better in this space when it
Wow.
comes to, yeah, absolutely. I've been following you for a long time and taking a lot of inspiration. I won't admit how many of your posts I will copy. Like, I need to do something like that myself.
I love it. I love it.
Amazing. If you're joining this webinar after the event through live instant replay, go ahead and scan that QR code. It'll take you to the Sherlock website where you can download this playbook for free. This playbook is going to be covering how to define your LinkedIn strategy, optimize for the algorithm, everything you need to know about creating and expanding your revenue generating network. A lot of really juicy stuff. And it's built specifically for HR consultants because those grimy, spammy sales tactics, they don't work when you're talking about people-based businesses. That's all of what our presentation is on today. Now, let's jump into defining your strategy. Before I kind of jump into the slides, Anjanette, I would love to kind of hear from you. Like, what do people get wrong when they just jump into posting on LinkedIn or interacting with the platform?
That's a great question, Dominic. I think the number one thing people usually, I'll say, mess up on, if we want to call it that, is they go into posting without a plan, of like, here's who I need to speak to. Here's what my audience would say. Usually people just start posting and talk about themselves. And I don't necessarily mean their personal life, even though some do. But even if they talk about, well, I do this and I offer, white glove, concierge, service. And it's like, no one cares about that. Like, people don't care about you. They care about what you can do for them. Right. And especially when we're scrolling. But even with all of this, even posting the wrong way, I always say to a client, the worst post you can make on LinkedIn is the post you don't hit publish on.
Okay.
I would argue that even the worst post with the worst strategy is still better than doing absolutely nothing.
Mm.
Nothing is the real crime here.
Well, hey, that's very reassuring. And I know, at least from my own experience with LinkedIn, I got started really posting for the first time about this time last year. And I hate going back and looking at those earlier posts, but you gotta start somewhere,
Same.
you know?
Same.
Yeah. So in terms of defining your strategy, there's really a few things you should be doing. One is identifying your goal. And you should really be framing around an outcome, right? Posting more isn't really a great goal for yourself. Whereas scaling a revenue generating audience provides an outcome that you can be consistently optimizing for, or establish myself as a thought leader. Those are outcome based goals that are going to get you way further and will help you do a better job of considering tactics within that goal. You absolutely want to define your audience. This is something that we'll definitely be covering throughout the event, making sure you're very clear on who is your content intended to reach. If you don't have your audience in place, creating content is going to be a lot harder for you. Engaging with users will even be more difficult. And then lastly, you need to create for yourself a unique perspective and angle to approach that audience. And so let's just take a quick look at what a LinkedIn strategy can sound like. My LinkedIn strategy is designed to generate inbound HR consulting inquiries from premium spa and wellness centers, view me as the go-to HR resource in this space. Very, very clear,
Wow.
very
Pretty
specific.
good.
Yeah. We see a few things here. We can clearly see the goal of this strategy. We know exactly who that audience is, probably owners of premium spa and wellness centers. And we know that they want to be viewed as a go-to resource for this audience. We'll talk more about how to get your strategy into that point in the playbook. So without further ado, let's move on to talking about the algorithm, because all of the decisions that you make about how to optimize your profile, how to create content, it's going to impact the algorithm in either really positive ways or potentially in ways that are hurting your stated strategy. So, Anjanette, I know because I heard from you that there was an incredibly monumental change to LinkedIn's algorithm back in November. Can you talk to me about what LinkedIn looked like before and what it looks like today with this new algorithm in place?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. LinkedIn has changed just since November 1st. So whether you're new to LinkedIn or you've been on it for a while, it's no secret. Everyone likes to complain, oh, impressions are down. Is LinkedIn dead? Da, da, da. No, not the case. Just a major algorithm change that was so big, LinkedIn themselves announced it. That's how big it was. So the difference is this new algorithm uses their own LLM to look at your content, sift through your content, decide who it's for, etc. So things that you had been doing before may no longer work. For example, personally, myself, I was killing it with carousels. I had these amazing informative carousels, and
They
they
were
were
beautiful. They were beautiful.
and they were super simple. And because I have so much focus on my clients, I was just doing for myself the same template like every time. And once this algorithm saw that, all of a sudden, my impressions tanked 60% in a month. And I went, what is going on? This new algorithm cannot read your templates, they can't read images. So it thought I was just literally posting the same thing like spam, like I was just spamming every day. Whereas my clients, I wasn't, so to speak, as like lazy with their strategy because I gave them some variety. None of them suffered algorithm shift like I did. So it is a very real thing. Another thing is personal storytelling is actually making a comeback, which is fabulous because that is what separates you as your own personal brand. That separates you from other HR consultants. That is what it is. It's your experiences, your stories, and even longer form content. I remember over like a year and a half ago, I started only doing plain text posts, no images, and they did great. And then everyone was doing carousels. So I had to jump on that bandwagon and images. Now I'm back to plain text, which is so much less work. And it's great.
Right.
It's, I pop graphics. Selfies are doing well. If
Mhm.
you can believe it, selfies are so personal pictures, even if they're
Yeah.
not, an actual selfie, are actually doing really well again. But basically, the main thing with all these little anecdotes I'm giving, the main takeaway is alignment.
Yeah.
They want to see that your headline, your profile page is in alignment with the things you post about. If you're an HR consultant and you just only post about your dog, it's not gonna, they're gonna be like, I don't get, why is this person giving dog tips or sharing about their dog? The goal of this algorithm is to help filter people's accounts to the right audience. So it's
Mm.
less about virality and huge reach and more about a narrow reach, but to the right people, which again, at the end of the day, we're on LinkedIn to make money. So
Right.
it's better that they funnel it more towards your niche.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you hit on a really important theme is the concept of alignment. Just to kind of double down on some of what you're saying, LinkedIn's algorithm is looking at your profile. How do you talk about yourself? How do you describe yourself? You say you're a former VP of HR, but you're talking about marketing tips. It's not going to see the alignment between who you are and what you're talking about. The same thing is true if, you're targeting small business owners, but the only people interacting with you are other HR professionals, right? And so it's looking for strong alignment between how you talk about yourselves, the kinds of content that you're posting online, and then ultimately who is engaging with you. And all of these signals are validating to the algorithm essentially two key questions. Who are you relevant to? and who should see you next. And so the algorithm is really trying to use these signals basically to distribute you to the right people. So if you understand how this algorithm is working, you can essentially optimize your strategy to ensure that the algorithm is showing you to ideal client profiles. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit. As I mentioned, it's looking for your profile, your content, and your engagement. And we're actually going to have a dedicated section to each of these topics in this deck. So we'll look at, things you can do to your profile, different types of content you can and should post about, content you should avoid, and then how to think about engagement in the context of using this algorithm to your advantage. So some things you should know about engagement, and this will be something that pops up throughout the presentation, is if there's an audience on LinkedIn that is regularly scrolling past your content, the algorithm will learn to stop showing it to them. And this is damaging for HR consultants and other service-based business owners when the people scrolling past your content are the people that you're trying to sell to. And so making sure that your content does get in front of the right people so that you can nurture those relationships into revenue generating opportunities. On the other side, high engagement signals, this happens when a very specific audience regularly engages with your content. LinkedIn will consistently show you to this group. And this is, of course, beneficial when clients frequently engage with your content because the algorithm will say, oh, let me show this to other business owners who are also in this industry, right? But there's an inherent risk here for HR consultants because a lot of HR consultants tend to post content on HR topics. And a lot of business owners, they don't really love HR. They don't really want to think about HR. And so they don't always engage with this content, even if it is relevant to them. But the people who do engage with HR content are other HR professionals. And so knowing this about how the algorithm works, what you want to avoid doing is training the algorithm to show your content to other HR professionals as opposed to your ideal client. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Anjanette, I see you right there.
I don't know. I'm so excited to talk about this. I was just going to say, and one thing for sure, this is like a super important distinction that Dominic is making right now. But even if you say, okay, you know what, I'm going to align my content more with the business owners versus other HR professionals, don't be discouraged or think you're doing it wrong. If like far and away, you are going to get more comments and engagement from your peers, from other HR professionals for the reason that you're all swimming in the same pool and they're looking to grow their own LinkedIn. So they're going to be the people that engage with you more. Now, that doesn't mean the right people are not looking. I always tell my clients, lurkers are buyers. The people who engage with my content the most never buy a thing from me. They don't become my clients. But what they do is I like to think of them as like little cheerleaders that pump up my content so the right people do see it. Because inherently the business owner that's like, oh my God, I need to deal with this HR headache is not like going on LinkedIn being like, let me comment on this post. This sounds great. They're like, who's going to solve my problem? But that doesn't mean that they're not reading it. You just may not see the evidence that they are.
I'm so glad you brought that up. And lurking is so real. I see this all the time, even with my own content. Of course, I provide software and support to HR consultants, and there are tons of in-house people who don't interact with my content because they're not trying to alert their employer that they're thinking about jumping into consulting. And so I definitely have a lot of offers on my end too, where people will, reach out and be like, hey, I've been following your content. I want to learn more. Just because someone's not engaging doesn't mean there's no opportunity there.
Absolutely.
We could spend a whole hour on optimizing your profile top to bottom. We really could. But I want to breeze us through just a few optimizations you can make. And then we'll have a little activity we can do together. Before I talk about things you can and should do to your profile, Anjanette, what would you say are the number one or two things a LinkedIn profile should do really well? What are the components that someone should really nail?
Great question. So if you had 30 seconds only to change your LinkedIn profile, the good news is we know you have more time and you're going to do it all and you're going to optimize the whole thing. But if you only had 30 seconds to update your profile because you're about to hop on a call with someone or something, the two most important things on your profile, I would argue, was number one, headline, simply because that's the first thing people see. I could also say photograph, but let's just assume that everyone in 2026 has a nice looking photo, but obviously that would be a good one. But Headline, number one, it must show who you are speaking to and what problem you're solving. So headline is number one. And number two, I'd say the second most important thing on your profile, if you only had a few seconds to change it, is your featured section. This is
Okay.
the most ignored part of a LinkedIn profile, and it's the most important. And as an HR consultant, your feature section should not be some cool article or some post you wrote that got a lot of likes. It needs to be a booking link to your calendar. So people see your headline, they see you solve the problem that they need, and then boom, they go right to your calendar
Love
and
it.
they book. Even fun fact is, even when Dominic and I first met, he booked something on my calendar. And I was like, who's this guy? And then
Yeah.
eventually, yeah, and it was great. But like, that's how powerful it is. People
Yeah.
will book your calendar.
I mean, I recommend this all the time. If you're just getting started as an HR consultant, you do not need a website. You need a high converting LinkedIn profile. It does all of what you need a website to do, especially as you're early on. You have a dedicated space to talk about who you help and how. You have a place where you can book new clients. You don't really need to send them off the platform if you're accomplishing those things. So let's talk about how to optimize your profile for conversions because, you know, people will be landing on your profile. You basically have about 3 seconds before they decide, should I keep reading or should I just move on? And so you really want to create a foundation for all of your LinkedIn activity by starting with your profile. What you don't want to do is start posting content that's pointing people back to your profile. And when they get there, they can't really tell who you are, what you do, and don't know what next step you should take. So just to prevent yourself from like leaking effort, start with the profile, then start posting content, then start making connection requests. This is really your foundation. When we're talking about all the different components on your profile, there's a lot you can optimize here. Again, you can spend an entire session just focusing on this topic. I really want to focus on above the fold. This is really your like most conversion heavy components on the profile. If someone, likes what they see above the fold, they will keep reading or they will click your link to schedule. So this are the heavy hitters. For those of you who are joining a little bit later, that QR code will take you to download the playbook so you can follow along. Optimize your profile for small scale. I get this question a lot, like, why colorful headshots? I like to describe it like candy or Skittles on your LinkedIn. Your eye goes straight to it. And I know sometimes when you are an HR consultant, you're like, oh, I don't know if that's for me. Does it feel professional? I think when you're using like a clean background, you can go with something soft and muted. But the reason why that people do it is it removes any clutter. It focuses on your face. It also stands out from LinkedIn's UI, whether they're on dark mode or light mode. So this is just a really easy way for your face to be clear and present when you're leaving comments on people's posts. This photo is so, so, so tiny. And you want to make sure that when someone's seeing it, they can see your face. People recognize faces. Yes.
Absolutely. It absolutely stops the scroll. Think about, and I know it sounds silly, but think about even thumbnails on YouTube videos. The bright yellow backgrounds, big bold letters in red. That's what
Absolutely.
stops the scroll. And you almost have to think of it is the same. Like you said, it's not just it's colorful Skittles and it's cool and it pops, but the pop is also a scroll stop. It's so important because if something catches your eye, you just stop on it because it's
Yeah.
bright. So that is such a crucial key thing.
And you actually start to remember people's color. Like I see the color, I'm like, oh, that's internet, right?
100%.
Especially when it's so small. So that color can really help with building familiarity. The next thing, of course, is your banner image. You want to make sure that you make great use of your banner space. I see some consultants who have no banner image. It says nothing about them, or they put a large logo in that space, or they feature their name. This doesn't have as strong of conversion value. On the flip side, I do see some people, they put like a list of all of their services there. And that is certainly better than not using the space at all. But really, this space should be used to just nail down who you help and how. And so we can see some examples here of like low conversion value all the way through high conversion value. This is going to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of telling a visitor why they should be on this page, why they should interact with you.
Absolutely. Dominic has it laid out. Look, everyone stare at this slide. Stop. put your phone down, whatever you're doing, look at this slide. It is so important. Your banner is prime real estate next to your photo, that headline. This is prime real estate. So many people do not utilize, but even more, most people don't utilize it well. They put like, oh, I like Iceland in the summer. And like they put like something, a travel photo. But even if you look at these three, I guarantee person number one and person number two thinks they did a good job on their LinkedIn banner. Show what you do. Purpose over pretty here, everybody. Okay.
I love
Purpose
that.
over pretty. It's gonna look fine. No one's judging your graphic design skills. Canva has a million free templates. It's got to stand out like the Skittle colored profile pics,
Yeah.
and it's got to have purpose.
100%. Purpose over pretty. Love that so much. So craft a headline for the comment section. I see this a lot. Headlines, you have basically 40 to 60 characters when your headline appears alongside your name and photo in the comment section before it truncates, meaning you get that little dot, dot, dot. And so the juiciest parts of your headline, who you help and how, they need to be right at the front of your headline to make sure that that's what people see in the comments. Your headline is your positioning statement. I see a lot of people, they'll use their headline to essentially do keyword stuffing, which is like a way to be like found on LinkedIn.
But that's if you're looking for a job.
Your typical buyer isn't necessarily thinking, I want an HR consultant.
Right.
But that's not how they're searching for you, but they are looking for relevance. And so this is where if you can put your positioning statement right at the front of your headline, you will convert faster. Another thing you can do here on the profile section is to add a link. You don't need this. This is a premium feature available through LinkedIn Premium. But just like the featured section that Anjanette mentioned, having a space where you can guide people from your profile to your booking link, or from your profile to that high value resource where you capture their email right at the top of your profile, going to do a lot of heavy lifting for you. So we've got a little activity. We're going to spot the issues. We've just learned what you should be doing on your LinkedIn profile. And Jeanette.
Oh, and I would even add something to he said it best. Like you have to put who you help and what you do. And if you are an HR consultant and you have part of what you offer, if you have specific outcomes, that is something I would argue should go in there. Like if you say like, oh, reduced retention, employee retention by X, Y, and Z in 2025. Like if you have because remember, people buy outcomes. They don't buy products or services. They buy outcomes. So if you do in your own experience have some kind of specific outcome, that's a real like highlight reel moment, put that there too.
100%. I'm just going to show this profile here. Chat, pop off. What are some things going wrong with this profile? These are not real people, by the way. So
that would just be cruel.
That would be so cruel. Boring banner, no banner. Correct. Yep. Headline way too vague. They're saying what they are, but not who they're for. Mixing opportunity, busy profile photo. Yes. Really, really small, that this would not translate well to small context.
Yeah. We want to see your face. And that's another thing. And even people that are like, oh, I know I don't really take a lot of pictures. I've literally had people say to me, well, I don't take selfies. I don't have a lot of pictures. It's like, it is now 2026. Get your phone, get a little ring light, or at least some good lighting, and take a picture. If you don't have one, you can solve that problem in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So there's no excuse for a bad picture.
There's some really great AI tools. Share a couple casual photos of yourself that you really like with AI, and it will generate you a really, really great, perfect use LinkedIn profile image. And they often show up so small that people can't tell it's an AI photo. Next profile, we're seeing some improvement here. We're seeing they do have a banner image. You see banner lacks info. Headline also still too vague. Let's jump to another profile here. This is one I actually helped one of our consultants on. Would love to kind of hear into the feedback here. Good one. Donna, it's great. Don't lie. All right. So a few things we're seeing here with this profile. We're seeing a positioning statement, fractional HR partner for SMBs, experience with hospitality brands. We're seeing a few different brands represented here that provides a little bit of proof of credibility. This is essentially saying like, I know what I'm talking about. The headline there, I would say if you were to optimize this a little further, HR solutions for hospitality businesses, that should probably be at the front. But otherwise, we're looking at a really, high conversion value profile banner. I saw some people in the chat. I think my profile needs work. We actually created a custom GPT. All you need to do is take a screenshot of the top of your profile and drop it into the GPT here. And so what this will do is we've trained the GPT to analyze your profile as an HR consultant using some of the same standards included in our playbook. So go ahead, scan that QR code. It'll take you to the GPT. You can use that on your own time. It'll provide you some recommendations. And if you need help fixing your profile, don't hesitate to reach out. Okay.
Yes, and do not sleep on this, guys. This is like this. He's like saying it casually. Do not sleep on this. This is an amazing, amazing resource that is going to help you today.
I will say the goal is not to get a 10 out of 10. The goal is to optimize for your audience and your needs. And so I'll say, like, actually dropped in my own profile in there. I got a 9.2. Not mad about it.
You guys are always going to know
Yeah.
your audience better than anyone else, including a custom GPT.
Right.
So
So
don't forget to use your brain.
moving forward to expanding your network, you've got this profile in place. The next step is to take your profile and put it into the hands of potential clients. And I think this is why LinkedIn is so much better than starting with a website, because this is essentially taking your LinkedIn and putting it directly in the hands of your ideal customer, right? And so that's not something you can do with a website without like months of SEO work. This is where LinkedIn really shines. And so when you've got that profile optimized for conversion, you can start growing your audience. I'm curious, Anjanette, just before we dive into how to grow your audience, what would you say to someone who's like, am I too small to be getting started? Or like, how big do I really have to be for this to work?
The riches are in the niches.
Okay.
Everybody. It is so true. You're not trying to be an influencer. You don't need a large audience to monetize your audience at all. All you need is the right people. Because think about it, going viral, let's say you're like, oh my God, all these people saw my post. I got like, 300 likes. Oh my God. It's like, if it doesn't put money in your pocket, it doesn't matter. Sure, that may be good because that's like a nice boost. You'll never hate going viral. But the point is, this isn't about ego. It's about your bank account, right? So it doesn't matter how small you are. What matters is that you have the right people. I'd rather have 50 people follow me that are my target ideal audience than 10,000 people who will never buy from me.
Yeah, absolutely. So having that smaller audience that's really aligned with your revenue goals as a service-based business owner, really, really useful.
Yes, I have to add, even most of my clients, I manage people's LinkedIn profiles. None of my clients are major LinkedIn presences with like 100,000 followers. None of them have that because they all have their own individual businesses. That I'd say the average follower count from my clients is like around maybe 7,000 followers, which for some may sound like a lot, but in reality, that's not that many. And I'd argue even most of those may not be their super ideal client, because the pool that you actually need to pull from for any industry is usually quite small. It's
Yeah,
just about showing up consistently in
100%.
that pool.
Yeah, knowing some of these details about how to consider and conceptualize your audience. Like, this is why you should prioritize quality over quantity, because when you have a large following that's not well aligned to your goals on LinkedIn, it's going to dilute your feed. When you go to look at posts and try and engage with your target audience, you're going to be seeing posts from old classmates, old coworkers who are outside your industry. You have to hunt and find a needle in a haystack just to interact with your target audience, which is why I would recommend, if you're serious about using LinkedIn, prune your audience, get rid of connections that aren't valuable for what you're working on right now. If it's someone you really want to stay connected with, try Instagram or Facebook to like stay in touch. But LinkedIn for you as a business owner is a tool for finding and engaging with potential clients. And so you don't want to crowd that with personal relationships. When I first got started with LinkedIn and really decided like, I'm going to go all in on targeting HR consultants, I took my audience from about 1,800 people down to about 200.
That's scary. That just doesn't feel good.
Yeah. I was like, maybe I shouldn't have done that because now I look like maybe like a brand new account. But I'm really glad I did. because now my network is 80 to 90% of my ideal customer, with a few creators who I take inspiration from in there, or thought leaders that I want to learn more from. But really, I've cultivated a network, of garden, if you will, of potential clients, and I don't have to look too hard to find someone that's worth engaging with. When you also have a larger audience that's not aligned, you're just going to see lower engagement from them, and the algorithm will have a harder time understanding who you're targeting. A few things for finding your ideal audience. I'm not going to spend too much time on this section because we do have more to cover, but there's a lot of different tools that you can use to find your audience. Some of them are free, like LinkedIn Basic Search. You could upgrade to LinkedIn Sales Navigator to have much more advanced filtering on how you build your lead lists. There's also off platform tools like Clay or Apollo, which will allow you to build lead lists using LinkedIn information. So it can be a cheaper option. It's not as user friendly as just using native LinkedIn filters, but we do have a list of tools there for you. Some fundamentals you should know about outreach. Generally, you should stay under 20 connection requests per day. You don't want to go over that. Otherwise, LinkedIn will flag you as a spam account. And it is a volume game. You should generally expect only about 30% of people to accept your connection request. Only about 10% of people will respond to your initial messages. And then only about 5% of them will actually move into a conversation or a first time consult. And so this is where outreach is a volume game. I like to think of it as going fishing with like 100 fishing rods. You're waiting to see which rod is biting,
That's
right?
right.
You're an HR consultant. You are a people person. You don't want to be using like really spammy, aggressive outreach tactics. And so we have a framework. It's in your LinkedIn playbook that I'll talk about sending that connection request, what to do when it's accepted, what you should include in your first few messages. But as a rule of thumb, your goal, if you're sending 20 connection requests per day, you should be hitting around 600 connection requests per month with a 30% connect rate, a 10% reply rate. That should give you about 30 warm leads or people that you're having active conversations with. And so this is where this system does work when your profile is aligned and you're outreaching to the right people. The next step is really just up to you on how you convert them. And Jeanette, I would love to get your perspective on the whole outreach ecosystem on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, it's how I built the LinkedIn ghostwriting side of my business. People do outreach because it works. People don't like to talk about outreach because they're like, oh, yeah, I don't like it. It makes me uncomfortable, but it works. It may not be your favorite thing, but you probably don't like brushing your teeth either. Like I don't like brushing my teeth in the morning, but I do it. I do it because it works and I need to keep my teeth. And it's the same thing. I mean, guys, we're so lucky. Think about like even 20 years ago, you had to go in person and talk to humans like face to face. And if you wanted business, here you can do it in your pajamas behind a screen. And it's so easy these days. The barrier to entry now is so low and it's so easy that even if outreach isn't your thing, you can absolutely make it your thing.
Absolutely. Engaging with your audience. At this point, we have optimized our profile. We've started outreaching to potential clients, which is just expanding our network further. The next layer, of course, is engaging with this audience that you're actively growing. If you're coming into this webinar and you already have a large audience that you're like, I'm just looking to do a better job of engaging with them, start here. If you're at a point where you're like, I don't really have a large audience of potential clients, start with outreach just to kind of like level set with like where you should be approaching your goals here. But engaging with your audience can happen in a number of different ways. Of course, there's liking and commenting on their posts, posting your own content, sending DMs, a lot of different ways for you to engage. In terms of commenting, I put 20 comments per day. And Jeanette, I'm sure you have a different
Say more. I
more.
say more. But here's also something that's really important for you guys to understand. If you want people to be seeing your posts and if you feel like, oh, I'm posting good content, no one's saying it, engagement is not like, oh, if I have time today, I'll engage. Most social media platforms view posting content as like giving to the platform because you're giving the platform free content. However, LinkedIn is kind of the opposite because they see posting as almost taking from the platform. Whereas they see engagement, leaving comments, liking posts, etc., as giving to the platform. So in order to promote your posts and boost your impressions, they want to see that you're being a good citizen of the platform. And you do that with daily engagement. Look, 20 comments per day, I think is a great goal to start, but I would say aim for 40 to 50 comments a day. That's a lot,
And
but little things like that make huge, huge differences
mhm,
in your
yeah,
growth.
in terms of like commenting at scale, how thoughtful would you recommend the comment be? 'Cause I know that could probably be the hardest part is like,
Yes, I know. It's tough. And it's honestly why you see so many AI comments. And look, I'm not anti AI comment. It's not the worst thing in the world,
mhm,
but you can take a second to like zhuzh it and like make it, not sound terrible.
yeah,
Right.
it's
But
a
no,
good-
but yeah, yeah, and get commenting 101 on LinkedIn is you can't just write great insight, great post, thanks for the share, congrats, because that doesn't add value. And if your potential client like sees you in there, they have no idea why they should even click on you. Remember, it's almost like they're leaving breadcrumbs. And so you might say, oh, great insight. When I helped with employee retention at blankety blank company, I saw similar or something. And then people go, oh, this person is like maybe an expert on this topic. Let me click on them. On and on and on.
100%. You know, for myself, the first time I got 10,000 impressions on anything was a comment. Long before I ever got 10,000 impressions on a post, there's a
Yeah.
lot of visibility that can happen with a high quality comment, especially if you're leaving that comment in a place where your ideal client is potentially already reading.
Mhm.
Now, in terms of sharing high value content, this is something you, of course, can do. A general great place to start is 3 to 5 posts per week. Anjanette, I'd love to have you weigh in on this. I know some people are posting 7 days a week. Where would you say, you recommend?
So personally, I'll just say personally, because LinkedIn is a big part of my business too. I post 6 days a week. I post Monday through Saturday, and I take Sundays off. That's me. If you're like, wait, that sounds overwhelming. I talk about this a lot, like on my Substack newsletter. I talk about this a lot about how there's definitely ways to utilize AI, and we're not going to go into it here, but there's definitely ways that you can make content creation a lot easier and without as much friction. So don't let that part stress you out. We can get you there. We can get you, pumping out content easily. But what's important is look, the more content you share, the more opportunities you have. That's just the truth. The more you're putting out, the more you're going to get back. So I always say as much as you can do. Now, the good news is it's not like Twitter or something where you need a tweet like 5 times a day. Just one post a day is good enough. Sometimes I'll do 2 posts in a day if I'm able to. But if you can commit to 3 to 5 per week to start, just to kind of test yourself, start with 3 posts per week. See that you can maintain that. Once you maintain that, then stack on. If you try to go too intense too quickly, you might burn out. But it's important. You can't just post once a month here and expect the same kind of results as someone who's posting daily.
Yeah, 100%. As you're initiating conversations in comment threads or even on your own posts, move them into the DMs, especially for HR consultants. Oftentimes, the questions you should be asking a potential client about their team are not the kinds of things they want to talk about in a comment thread that's public. So I would say for HR consulting specifically, be like, hey, just wanted to follow up on my comment in case this was a sensitive topic and add a little extra thought for you. So this is just kind of a way for you to move out of the comment section into the DMs where you can really build that relationship. In terms of your engagement window, you should pick a dedicated posting time. My posting time is 7 a.m. I do that because of East Coast people. I schedule it so I don't have to be up at 7 a.m.
Yes.
necessarily.
And if you're on the East Coast, make sure you're not scheduling it for the West Coast people at like 4 a.m. because we're not getting it.
Yeah.
So keep in mind the time zones.
Yeah. So having your engagement window is like identify your dedicated posting hour and then plan to engage before and after that. Engaging before kind of warms up your audience, the algorithm, publish your post. And then after you're replying to comments that you've left, you're replying to comments people left on your post. So I would look at this as your LinkedIn power hour is like, when are you posting? Engage on either side of it, just to make sure you're getting the most bang for your buck when it comes to posting content. So scaling through content, we're just going to breeze through this one really quickly to make sure we do have time for questions. Using content to drive inbound sales interest. The quality of your posts matter more than the quantity. You can have a really high performing post with only, 5,000 followers and still do better than an average post made by someone with 25,000 followers. This is
100%.
where smaller audiences don't limit you in terms of reach if you are creating high value content. And so focus on quality over quantity. In terms of what you should post about, golden rule, post content your ideal clients care about. I would not focus on what you think they need to hear. Focus on what they're ready to listen to. And this is a common pain point for HR consultants because you're like, oh man, they need to know to prevent discrimination in the workplace. Yes, they do, but you have to frame it in a way that they can digest. And so I would focus less on educating business owners on HR topics and focus on communicating business problems they recognize today and then tying those problems to people decisions. So let's say you're working with scaling hospitality businesses. You can talk about performance management, but frame it as a revenue conversation. Here's how to get wait staff to increase your revenue per seat. This is where the business owner is like, I would love for my wait staff to increase revenue per seat. And you're hooking them with a business problem, but you're landing it with a people conversation. And the same thing, like, here's how to help your restaurant prepare for the busy holiday rush. This is a scheduling conversation, training, policy conversation, but it's framed as seasonal execution.
Sell
Yeah.
the outcome always.
This is probably a weird one, but my cousin hated eating broccoli. And my mom was like, what if I dip the broccoli in chocolate? And he ate it. He ate the chocolate dip broccoli. But I think the same thing is true with business owners in HR. Like dip the HR conversation in something they really want to eat, you know? All right, this is so
That is
specific.
the best, weirdest analogy like I've ever heard, but I love it. Like that's now I can't
Yeah.
unthink about chocolate dip
Okay,
broccoli.
you have kids, you know how hard it is to
I
get them to
know.
eat something they
Oh
don't
my
want to eat.
God.
Yeah.
Amazing.
There's a lot of different content formats. There's too many to dive in. This is gonna be a really great opportunity for you to dive into the playbook. Now, converting connections into clients, your growth compounds over time. I mentioned earlier on the webinar, I actually eliminated most of my LinkedIn audience. And this time last year, I only had about 200 connections. And I did that to make sure that I cultivated an audience that was really aligned with my goals. I show this because I want to show you what's possible in a year. I'm not a crazy growth hack, LinkedIn growth expert, but in this past year, I've gained almost 3,000 new connections that all fit in my ideal audience. And I've been seen hundreds of thousands of times. And so this is where you mentioned this earlier. You don't need a huge following to do well on LinkedIn. You just need a good strategy that puts you in front of your ideal audience. And so
And look, over 300 people signed up just for this webinar today. That's proof positive.
people, yeah, like it's
It's
awesome.
huge.
So the LinkedIn growth loop, think of it as a loop. All of your efforts are going to compound. You're going to be commenting and posting with your target audience. That'll build profile traffic. It's going to convert because you've optimized your profile. That'll send signals to the algorithm to show your profile to similar business owners, increases your distribution, both in terms of being recommended as a profile to ideal audiences and having your content shared. This, of course, is going to drive inbound interest and outreach. And the next step is for you to close those conversations. Everything we just talked about today is really building a funnel that you can just rinse and repeat. We do have some time for Q&A. I'm going to switch this over to the questions. Can we talk more about impressions? And Jeanette, I'll turn this over to you. Explain impressions. What does that mean?
I mean, impressions is just literally how many views a post gets. Now, it can be if when you refresh your own post, it counts as an impression. So if you just want a lot of impressions, just hit refresh on your own post. No, but impressions is the best indicator of how many people are seeing your content.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
it's definitely one of the big metrics you want to measure is I would be measuring impression count and follower count.
I see someone asking here, I have a solid baseline network, 6,500, but my engagement is insanely low, less than 100 impressions often. What content strategy do you suggest for a fractional HRTA consultant to post about? Can I do both arms? How can I make sure content gets in front of my ICP?
Got a great question. So one, I would ask, what are you posting about currently that's not working? So let's figure out what's not working. So figure out
Yeah.
what's not working first. And then number two, I would say, are you engaging on other people's content? I would be curious about that because if you're not leaving 20 to 40 comments a day somewhere else or doing like that power hour that Dominic talked about, that is also a big clue. If you're not giving the love, you're not going to be feeling the love. In terms of what should you specifically post about, that would be something like on like a one-on-one call, I would have to dive deep in to know what's your exact niche should be
Yeah.
posting it. But hopefully those two give you a good jumping off point.
Absolutely. I see a question here. I'll go ahead and take this one is how do we make ourselves shine through the minutia of other postings? I have to admit there's so much of look at me, look at me. That's where the opportunity is. Do not have your content be look at me. Have your content be here's a problem I know you're experiencing. Here's how to solve it. Here's what I know you care about. Here's how you solve it. Here's that issue you've seen happening in your business. Here's what to do about it. This is where you start framing all of your content around something that's really relevant to your target buyer. Who you are and your background and your accomplishments, they're not relevant to your target buyer until they're ready to commit to signing a contract to be like, do you actually have the chops? You need to hook them in with the outcome that they're looking for, telling them that you solve the problems that they're trying to solve. So avoid the look at me posts. I don't know for those of you joining this call, if you follow me, I don't post about my software, but I get a lot of inbound requests about my software because people are interested in what I have to say and they want to know more. And you should think about your content in the same way.
Absolutely.
We see here, can you be problem led rather than industry led on your banner? I would say absolutely. So if you solve a problem, let's say your problem is workplace investigations, you're totally industry agnostic.
Mhm.
Talk about workplace investigations. Maybe you angle it with like a specific audience, like for what size of business, it may be in a specific location that's relevant for you. Differently, you can be a problem focused positioning statement there. It's something I actually see, and Anjanette, I'm going to turn this one over to you. What would you recommend for people who are at a point where they're currently employed and they are trying to use LinkedIn to grow their audience, but they have a business page or like an employer that's maybe watching what they're doing?
Post content, but just start with the content because again, when you're sharing your expertise, that's not like, hey, come work with me, blah, blah, blah. It's not salesy. You're just sharing your expertise. So that's number one. If you're not able to like change your banner or change your headline so much, start with the content because there's nothing wrong as an employee with sharing your own expertise. Start there.
Just to kind of double down on that, using your LinkedIn to grow consulting opportunities, but then also keeping it optimized for corporate roles. How would you like navigate that balance? Is that a balancing act someone should try to do? What would you recommend there?
Are you saying, so if you're currently employed or if you're just like, I'm open for fractional and I'm open for employment?
Yeah. So you're trying to position yourself as a fractional consultant, but also be open for full-time corporate roles.
I would say which is more of the priority.
Mhm.
Only you know the answer. And I would lean more into whatever is the priority for you. If you're like, no, I really want my own business, or if it's like, oh no, I really want a job, but maybe I can make a little money, as consulting. You have to decide which is the priority, and I would lean your profile more toward whatever that priority is. Doesn't
Amazing.
mean you can't do both,
Right.
but you got to lean one somewhere. It
Yeah.
can't be everything to everyone.
Super helpful. I know that we're coming towards the end of our dedicated time. We have a really exciting offer for you today. This isn't something that you'll see available anywhere else online. This is something that's only available if you got through all 50 slides of this presentation. So we have this LinkedIn starter package. Again, this is something that really only came together because of the work that Anjanette and I were doing to put this content together. And so we've got a few things included in this package. One, you can get a full LinkedIn profile optimization. This is going to be a custom positioning strategy, custom branded profile graphics, a headshot refresh if you need one. Our team works specifically with HR consultants and fractional leaders. This is not generic LinkedIn profile optimization. It's very suited to how you need to position yourself to potential clients on LinkedIn. You'll also get a 1 hour private coaching session with Anjanette so that you can get expert or feedback and guidance on strengthening your LinkedIn content and engagement strategy. Really, really helpful. And then you're also going to be getting a 1 year of access to the founding member Substack. Anjanette, I would love for you to kind of talk a little bit about what that is and why it's valuable.
Yes, as a founding member to my Substack, you are going to get I do 2 newsletters per week. You get access to all of them, no paywalls, and I specifically speak to solopreneurs that are looking to navigate LinkedIn strategy as well as just business as well, because I'm a business person too, so it's not just LinkedIn, it's also business strategy and how to run that solopreneur show. You also get access to my digital products for free. And it's basically, you get the umbrella of everything Anjanette in this Substack.
We love to see it. All of these things combined is worth $1,100. For those of you joining us, you will save $300 when you sign up using that QR code right there. Again, this is not something that will be available anywhere else. You won't see this online. Is there a deadline to buy this package? No, there is not a deadline. However, this is only available for the first 15 people who purchase. At that point, this service will still be something that we can explore. However, you won't have access to the offer. Just to let you know where we're at, I do see 3 have already come through. So go ahead and scan that. If you need some time to think on it, go ahead. Feel free to reach out to our team, info@sherlock.com. Happy to chat through how this might make sense for you. And Jeanette, thank you so much for joining us. It's been
Amazing.
such a pleasure. I'm really happy to have you participate in all of this.
Oh,
Um,
thank you. This is fabulous. This has been so great. I love it.
Yeah. So if you enjoyed this session, we're going to be hosting an educational webinar just like you experienced today on various topics for HR consultants and fractional leaders every single month. I hope all of you have an incredible day. Thank you, and we will see you soon.
Take care.
All right. Bye. Thank you so much.